She had the face of a dream and the promise of a future. Sharon Tate wasn't just a rising star, she was Hollywood's sun-kissed answer to innocence and allure. A woman whose beauty turned every camera into a worshipper. A wife. An expectant mother. A life shimmering with possibility. But on a hot August night in 1969, everything shattered. Inside her home on Cielo Drive, she was stabbed 16 times. Her unborn child died with her, 8 months into a life never lived. No movie script could match the brutality of what happened. No headline could capture the silence that followed. She became a symbol not of beauty, but of horror. A haunting name whispered in documentaries, crime podcasts, and Hollywood's darkest corners. This isn't just a murder story. This is the untold story of Sharon Tate. Before the headlines turned her name into a tragedy, Sharon Tate was every director's dream and every magazine's cover girl. Born January 24, 1943, in Dallas, Texas. Sharon Marie Tate moved often due to her father's military career. But it wasn't the dusty roads of army bases that shaped her, it was the sheer, effortless beauty that seemed to radiate from her even as a teenager. Her smile was delicate, like pressed silk. Her eyes held the kind of vulnerability that didn't need words. In a time when Hollywood loved blondes with porcelain skin and perfect curves, Sharon didn't just fit the mold, she refined it. Her early career began with bit roles on television. But it was clear she wasn't meant to remain in the background. Photographers adored her. Fashion editors chased her. And film producers saw in her a kind of modern Marilyn Monroe, one who could walk the tightrope between sensuality and innocence. By the mid-1960s, she exploded onto the scene. Her breakthrough came with Eye of the Devil, 1966, a gothic mystery that showcased her haunting presence. But it was Valley of the Dolls, 1967, that truly cemented her in the public consciousness. The film itself was panned, but Sharon was not. She glowed on screen, playing Jennifer North, a doomed beauty who mirrored Sharon's own delicate femininity. Critics called her ethereal, mesmerizing. The camera's best friend. Behind the scenes, she was charming, warm, and shy. Co-stars described her as disarmingly sweet, almost too gentle for Hollywood. Yet she wasn't naive. She knew how fleeting fame could be. She once told an interviewer, "I'm just starting out. I hope people give me time to become whatever it is I'm supposed to be." Her marriage to director Roman Polanski in 1968 became a media sensation. They were the it couple, young, glamorous, European chic. They traveled the world. Photographed at film premieres and fashion events, two luminous beings orbiting each other in what seemed like a fairy tale. And then came the baby news. She was glowing in every photograph, cradling her growing belly in flowing maternity dresses. Paparazzi called her the Angel of Hollywood. To the world, Sharon Tate was not just a starlet. She was a dream incarnate, rising, blooming, becoming. But what the world saw was only a reflection. A curated image. A surface untouched by the deeper currents beneath. A star may shine brightest just before it burns out. Before the red carpets and velvet gowns, there was silence. A silence shaped by loneliness, constant movement, and a girl who never quite belonged anywhere. Sharon Tate spent her childhood in transit. As the daughter of an Army intelligence officer, she moved more than 15 times before turning 18. Italy. Texas. Washington. No roots. No long-term friendships. Her life was measured in suitcases and new schools. Each time she started to find footing, it was time to leave. Her smile became her armor. Her politeness, a shield. She was beautiful early on. Too beautiful. At just 16, she was crowned Miss Richland in Washington. The attention came quickly. Men stared too long. Girls whispered. Teachers softened. She learned fast, her looks were currency, but also a curse. She wasn't taken seriously. Behind every compliment was a hunger. Behind every glance, a shadow. What Sharon wanted was simplicity, connection. But that was hard when your world was built on constant departure. She once confessed to a friend, "I never had a best friend. Never stayed in one place long enough." During her teenage years in Verona, Italy, she became isolated, unable to speak the language and often left alone while her father worked. She spent hours reading American magazines, dreaming of a world where she could be seen and heard. Her beauty stood out so much among the locals that she couldn't even walk to school without being followed. At times, she was harassed, cornered. One incident ended in trauma that Sharon never spoke of publicly. But close friends hinted at something that left her afraid to be alone for years. She began modeling not because she craved fame, but because it gave her a kind of stability. A fixed place. An identity she could wear like clothing. Underneath the makeup and designer fabrics. However, was a young woman who flinched at loud voices and second-guessed every decision. She feared failure. She feared abandonment. The public never saw the girl who cried herself to sleep after her first failed screen test. Or the way she wrestled with self-doubt, worried she wasn't good enough for the big roles. Even as magazines crowned her the next big thing, Sharon struggled to find her voice in an industry that saw her as decoration. One night in a hotel room in New York, she called her mother and whispered, "I don't want to be a sex symbol. I want to be a person." But Hollywood doesn't slow down for broken pieces. It repackages them. Sharon learned to hide her softness. She laughed at jokes that hurt. Smiled when producers brushed her aside. She told herself it was just part of the process. After all, girls like her were supposed to be seen, not heard. What the world mistook for grace was often just survival. And deep within the glamour and press clippings, there remained the little girl watching the world from behind a pane of glass, longing to be touched, but never quite sure how to reach out. She didn't burst onto the scene. She was curated, styled, refined, shaped like porcelain in the hands of men who believed they knew what beauty meant. When Sharon first arrived in Los Angeles, she wasn't sure where she belonged. Her manager told her, "You're not a character actress. You're a canvas." That became her unofficial job description. She dyed her hair, perfected her speech, practiced walking slowly, deliberately, so the world would notice. She trained hard, took acting classes, studied expressions in the mirror. But no one asked about her depth. Directors were more interested in the way light reflected off her cheekbones than in the emotions behind her eyes. Her image was carefully constructed, the sensual ingenue, sweet yet seductive. Publicists crafted stories about her gentle nature. Magazines called her the goddess next door. She posed for photo shoots wearing flowing gowns and lace, always barefoot. Always half smiling, as if she were permanently caught between a dream and its echo. But the real Sharon? She was funny, intelligent, sarcastic in private. She loved classic literature and dreamed of doing period dramas. Still, every time she expressed her ambitions, she was told to stay in her lane. Producers reminded her, audiences don't want depth. They want desire. Her relationship with Roman Polanski accelerated the transformation. The world saw them as equals, the brilliant European auteur and the angelic American muse. But in truth, the power was never balanced. Polanski had control over their home, their image, even her wardrobe. He encouraged her to dress more provocatively. Told her to own the attention. For Sharon, love and approval became intertwined with performance. She laughed at his cruelty in public, but friends later revealed that she often felt trapped in the idea of being perfect. She played the role of the doting wife, the radiant mother-to-be, even when exhaustion and anxiety consumed her. Fame, too, was a role. Every event required preparation, outfits, expressions. Sound bites. She learned how to disappear behind the character she was supposed to be. When fans approached her, she always smiled. When interviewers asked shallow questions, she gave light answers. Her true opinion stayed buried, too dangerous, too complicated, too off-brand. And yet, behind closed doors, Sharon began fighting back. She started selecting roles with more emotional weight. She turned down a lucrative modeling contract, saying, "I want to be known for something more than my face." She begged Polanski to let her audition for a serious film about addiction. He refused. Her management discouraged her, calling it a career killer. But Sharon didn't stop trying. She joined film discussions. Sat in on production meetings. Read scripts for independent projects. She wasn't rebelling loudly, but she was pushing back, piece by piece. It was the quiet rebellion of a woman reclaiming her identity. Yet Hollywood doesn't reward women who outgrow their cages. The more she demanded substance, the more the industry tried to shrink her back into the symbol it created. She once told a friend, "I don't know who people think I am anymore. I don't even know who I think I am." The girl who had been moved from city to city now found herself moved between expectations, of beauty, of obedience, of silence. She was no longer Sharon Tate, the girl with dreams. She was Sharon Tate, the myth, the fantasy, the projection. And just as she began to shed that skin, life intervened. In 1969, Sharon Tate was living the Hollywood dream. Her career was ascending. She had just starred in The Wrecking Crew alongside Dean Martin, a film that, while light in tone, showcased her comedic timing and growing confidence. Audiences adored her. Studios finally started seeing her as more than just a pretty face. And in a town where beauty ages fast, Sharon was still at the crest of her youth, radiant, glowing, iconic. But it wasn't her latest film that captured the public's attention, it was her life. She was now the wife of Roman Polanski, one of the most promising directors of his generation. Together, they embodied a kind of bohemian glamour that magazines couldn't get enough of. Their home in the Hollywood Hills became a gathering place for artists, actors, and dreamers. It was the era of free love, rebellion, and spiritual exploration, and Sharon stood in the center of it all, wearing flowing dresses over her pregnant belly, her hair in soft waves, her smile wider than ever. She was 8 months pregnant with her first child. She told friends she had never been happier. She decorated the nursery herself, chose names, wrote letters to her sisters, filled with excitement and nerves. "I can't wait to meet this little soul," she wrote. But happiness, in Hollywood, is never safe. Behind the scenes, shadows were forming. Roman traveled often. Rumors of affairs trailed behind him. Sharon, though heartbroken at times, held the image steady. She knew how quickly the press could twist a narrative. She once said, "I don't want to be seen as a victim. I just want peace." Yet peace would never come. On August 8, 1969, Sharon hosted a quiet dinner at her home at 10050 Cielo Drive. Her friends, Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, and Wojciech Frykowski, joined her for wine and laughter. It was supposed to be a calm night. Polanski was away in Europe scouting locations. Sharon was just weeks away from giving birth. That night, 4 followers of Charles Manson broke into the house. Armed, delusional, violent. What happened next remains one of the most horrific acts in Hollywood history. Sharon begged them to spare her baby. She offered herself in exchange. She pleaded for her child's life, whispering promises, sobbing through pain. But there was no mercy. She was stabbed 16 times. Her unborn son died with her. The killers used her blood to write messages on the walls. It wasn't just murder, it was desecration. A ritual of madness. A brutal scream carved into the heart of a city built on dreams. The news broke the next morning. Headlines stuttered in disbelief. Slaughter in Beverly Hills. Beautiful actress among 5 dead. The public was stunned. Hollywood froze. Stars canceled events. Directors went into hiding. The city's glamorous facade cracked open, revealing something rotten beneath. Suddenly, Sharon Tate became a cautionary tale. A symbol not of success, but of vulnerability. Not of glamour, but of helplessness. And in death, she was reduced to a footnote in someone else's story, a tragic victim of the Manson family. But Sharon was more than that. She was a woman in her prime. A mother-to-be. A daughter. A sister. An artist fighting to be heard. And in the most critical moment of her life, she was silenced, not just by her murderers, but by the culture that preferred tragedy to truth. Behind the glowing smile was a plea, to be more than beautiful. To be whole. Instead, she became a ghost in every cautionary Hollywood tale. In death, Sharon Tate became legend, but not the kind she wanted. For years, her name was tethered to horror. Manson's shadow eclipsed her light. She became the girl who was murdered. The victim in a bloody narrative not of her making. Her films were forgotten. Her laughter erased. Her voice, silenced. But time, slowly, quietly, began to peel back the sensationalism. People started asking. Who was Sharon Tate? Not the headline. Not the crime. But the woman? Her family led the way. Her mother, Doris Tate, refused to let Sharon be remembered only as a tragedy. She became an activist, pushing for victims' rights and parole reform in California. Her efforts led to groundbreaking laws that gave victims' families a voice in courtrooms across America. Her sister Deborah carried the torch, preserving Sharon's legacy through remembrance, not horror. She released personal photos, journals, and memories. She spoke of Sharon's warmth, her humor, her intelligence. She reminded the world that before Sharon was murdered, she lived. In Hollywood, a slow reckoning emerged. Sharon's story became a case study in how the industry glamorizes beauty, but neglects protection. How a woman can be adored in life, yet reduced in death. And yet, Sharon never disappeared. She lingered in the corners of cultural memory, not as a ghost of terror, but as a whisper of grace. In the end, she didn't vanish. She became a warning. A memory pressed between the pages of Hollywood's golden book, too bright to ignore, too tragic to repeat.